All right. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Lisa Scott, Alumni Engagement Coordinator at Finger Lakes Community College. My co-hosts for our virtual event, Life After FLCC, Learn from Alumni, are Lee Pittifer, Assistant Director of the Geneva Campus Center. Hi, Lee. Amber Ingalls, Assistant Director of the Newark Campus Center, and Tammy Woody, Career Services Coordinator. Each spring for the past several years, we've gathered at the campus centers to connect alumni and current students for conversations at our Alumni Success Stories events. This year would have marked the 6th event at the Geneva campus and the 5th at the Newark Campus Center. We'd already started coordinating when the COVID-19 crisis caused us to explore alternatives, and we're excited that we can all be together today via WebEx and launch a new series that we hope to continue, as it will enable us to hear from alumni both here at home as well as those living around the country. This was done successfully last fall at the Victor Campus Center before we could have ever imagined what was to come. So we are thrilled that all 4 of our alumni who kindly volunteered to participate at the campus centers were still willing and able to take part in our event today. Joining us, we have 4 accomplished alumni who live and work around the Finger Lakes region. I believe we have representation from Ontario, Wayne, Seneca, and Yates counties today. Our 4 presenters are Michelle Garlock, class of '87, Patricia Hall, class of '02 and '19, Caitlin Laskowski, class of '06, and Dee Westfall, class of 2014. Thank you so much for being with us here today. Rather than expand on introductions at this point, I think it's best if we hear your stories in your own words. Each of our presenters will speak about her experiences as an FLCC student and the journey that followed that led to her career today. After all 4 of our presenters have had the opportunity to share her story, we will open it up for questions. To avoid any background noise, everyone's speaker will be muted except for the alumni speaker, and we are recording this event. If you have questions during the presentations, you are welcome to type them in using the chat feature below, and Tammy Woody will keep track of those questions and share them after all 4 alumni have presented. So again, welcome. Thank you for being here. And Michelle, could you please kick things off?
Hear me? How's that? Okay, good. All right. My name is Michelle Garlock. I graduated from Marcus Whitman in 1985, years and years ago. And I just wanted to give you a quick rundown, all you folks who are out there thinking about either going to FLCC or what does it mean to go to FLCC. I can tell you this. I graduated second in my class, and I was determined to go to a really good art school. I was accepted into Pratt down near New York City. And I went down there and decided after about a week that I was homesick and it wasn't going to work for me. But I came home and my advisor at Pratt said, if you don't go to school in New York City, you will make nothing of yourself as an artist. And I said at that point, I don't care. I want to go home. And so my parents came and got me, and my mom and dad said, you need to go someplace. So you're going to go to, at that time it was CCFL. And I said, oh my gosh, there's no way I'm going to go to a community college. I graduated second in my class. I am a skilled artist. There's no way I'm going to go to this. You know, at that point in my brain, it was for people who didn't have a plan. And so they said, no, you're going to go. And I went, and I have to tell you, it was the best decision that I was forced into, but the best decision I could have even made if I had the choice myself. I absolutely love my experience there. My art instructors were top notch. I was more prepared than most of the people in my classes when I transferred to my 4-year college after that down near New York City. So finally, I went down near New York City. I went to the College of New Rochelle for art therapy, and I was better prepared than anyone else. It was really a surprise the whole ride and was awesome. So where does that take me? I graduated with a degree in art therapy and did some play therapy and art therapy here in the region, but got more and more into administration and ended up with a master's and a certificate of advanced studies in educational administration. So I kind of went full all the way as far as you could get from art, and I was working as an assistant principal at Mid Lakes for some of the younger kids, and it was time to have a family. I'd been married 10 years. And I came home and I thought, what in the world am I going to do? And I decided to start my own art business. So all those years ago, studying at FLCC, getting a really good foundation in that, and then being able to start my own business and use those skills again, that was in 2000, and I haven't looked back. So FLCC prepared me to be able to do some really high-end artwork. I've worked in homes of people like the past CEO of Kodak. I've worked in two of his homes doing artwork, as well as he sent me down to Sanibel Island to work on his home there. I worked in lawyers' houses and doctors' houses and all kinds of things in a faux finishing type, which is doing some artwork on walls to make things look like they're either marble or wood grain, even though they're just solid surfaces. And now I work for the Lima Christian School as an art educator. I teach 7th through 12th grade and absolutely love it, and run a business. I'm the owner of Masterpiece Painting and Construction, and my husband works for me. So it's been a really cool ride. And again, it's been wonderful. And not only that, but now I have two daughters. One is going to be graduating from FLCC this year in the next few weeks. And my other daughter is entering in September to FLCC. And I'm really excited for them.
That's great. Thank you very much for sharing, Michelle. And
Thanks.
some of you may have had the opportunity to see Michelle's artwork at Art Space 36. She was part of the biennial exhibit. And Dee Westfall, who will be speaking shortly, her work was on display at the Canandaigua campus in the art gallery there. So be looking forward to hearing from her. But thank you, Michelle. And our next speaker up is Patricia Hall. So I will unmute you here and welcome.
Thank you, Lisa. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Patricia Hall. Most people do call me Pat for short. I graduated in 2002, and then just correction, 2018. So I have 2 degrees from Finger Lakes College. And I'll start off by saying, when I first started, or when I first went back to school, because I also have a business degree, I had moved from Monroe County to Wayne County and just wasn't sure about, you know, raising my kids in the city of Rochester. So with that move, I came back out to Wayne County. Then I ended up getting a job at the school or with the school district. And I was like, I miss my family, but yet my parents and grandparents were here in Wayne County. But I thought, you know what, I'm going to stay here. But if I'm going to stay, I should go back to school. I'd better do something. So at the time, I only had 2 children. I have a total of 5 right now. So I knew that education was important. It was something that my parents had instilled. Being the oldest grandchild was really important to me to kind of, lead that path or be that person that was going to do this, even with family. So I can say when I first went back to college, I thought I'm not going to go to a bigger school. That would be way too much, trying to raise a family and work full time. So I want to tell you about balancing work, school, and children. That, you know, you can't give 100% to everything. I found that out the hard way, but I did the best that I could. I was able to balance everything with the support from family. I don't think that I would have been able to get through even, the last 2 years or 3 years of graduating in 2018 if it wasn't for my family support. My family support is huge. So yeah, so anyway, I decided to go back to school, got a job with the school, ended up staying in Wayne County because I wanted to go back to Monroe County so bad. Ended up staying, living here, you know, buying a house, raising my kids. And like I said, at the time I had two, then came along the other three. So I graduated in 2002. At the time I was working as a family educator for the school district, and they hadn't required any education at that time, but then it came a point where they wanted, you know, individuals to have education. Lucky for me, I was already in school. It makes a difference too if you're not sure if a job is going to require the minimal 2-year degree. I've always you know, told individuals or suggest that that's the best thing to do, even if you're not sure what it is you want to do. Because my first degree was in liberal arts and science, 2002. I just thought, you know what, I've got to have something under my belt just because, in case. And what it came down to was at the end, they weren't expecting it, but they were asking. And at the time, I happened to be fortunate enough to be in school. So being that role model, not just to my siblings, but the individuals in my community, but as a mom, I wanted my kids to see that, you know, that how important secondary education was. So from that point on, again, I ended up, you know, two more kids came along after that in 2002. You know, I was still undecided what I wanted to do. I'm going to be honest, my real goal was to be a school teacher, because of the fact that my love and my passion, even now for education. I worry a little bit about the future of our students, but I know that it does take a village. And so I'm part of that village. So yeah, I wanted to be a school teacher, and then again, family work came, you know, in between. And then I decided, okay, after our program ended, I think it was 2009. So I'd gotten my degree, graduated. The program ended because it was grant funded. And I was like, now what am I going to do? I'd better jump back into school right now and do something and start working towards my goal. I want to just say a real shout out to the professors, the advisors, you know, Barb Chappell. Barb Murphy was there in 2002. Barb Chappell was there in 2002. Um, Linda Cunningham, 2018. Again, Barb Chappell, 2018. I want to say a shout out to all the professors who were there for me from the first time, 2002, and in 2018 that supported me, and even going back to school. And Barb Chappell was my advisor at that time. I also want to say I had a daughter that graduated in 2017. So here I was as a mom, trying to work full time. Also, the goal was I wanted to still teach. You know, I still wanted to be a teacher. My daughter ended up going to Finger Lakes and graduated in 2017. And her and I had made a pact that we would graduate together. Well, with work, um, you know, family. I wasn't able to jump right into school at that time with her to graduate, but I ended up going to school, starting school in 2000, end of 2017. So I ended up going back for my human service degree. So in between all that time of trying to balance work, school, you know, personal life, I was able to get myself back into school and said, you know what, I got to see how close I am to what I love, working with people. And I decided to go with the human service degree. So, and that kind of led me into a lot of things. So as a health educator for Finger Lakes Community Health, we pretty much, that's what we do. We deal with people. So I thought perfect time to have that human service degree. Although you're not teaching, you're always educating. And there is some teaching that goes on. We teach, we go into schools, we do presentations, we go out in the community and let people know the services that we offer. So I thought about it and I thought, you know what? You're always teaching. You really are. You're just not wearing the title of like a school teacher. But I said to myself, you know what? You are doing that already up under another hat. So yeah, so I ended up with 2 degrees. I was really excited to go back to school in 2018, and more excited and ecstatic to graduate for the second time around from FLCC. I want to tell you, it was like a family. I met so many new people. We were a family. We had some things that happened during our semester and time, and we were really close knit. If one wasn't in class, we wondered where they were. It was like that. And so I want to say that personal experience. It's hard to kind of, you know, talk about it sometimes. But if it wasn't for my family, if it wasn't for the advisors, if it wasn't for even the peers and students, some of them fresh out of high school, if it wasn't for everyone, I don't know if I would have hung in there. There were days where I was just unsure, why did I do this? And I'm working full time and I'm raising children. Being over 50 years old, I didn't want to give my age per se. It was tough, as an adult learner to come back and um, try and especially computer. I had a computer course, to come back and finish my education. In other words, finish what I started. So with that said, I just want to say, when things get tough, always have somebody in your corner, whether it's an advisor, whether it's student. We begin to share phone numbers within the class, so that we had everybody's contact information. So all that is important. And if you think that, you're going to do it alone and that it's okay to do it alone and you're just not sure, I suggest that you have someone you can call, um, someone that can, kind of give you like, it's going to be okay. You can do this. And I had a lot of cheerleaders. I had my children, and my son was my biggest partner during my last year in 2018. He started to be that person that would, I'd ask, can I interview you? Or, Mom, you're up late. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. What are you doing? You have to go to work. He began to be one of my biggest cheerleaders. And I think the best part of all, again, was the support that I had from the staff. I really can't say any more than that, is that the staff was, especially Newark campus. I ended up, being at the Newark campus most of the time, and then the Geneva campus. But I have to say the staff was awesome. It's a balancing act to work, to be a parent, to also not to forget to take care of yourself and to be a student. You know, like I said, everything's not going to be 100%, but when it's all over, when it's all said and done, and you walk across that stage, um, there's just no words. I think my youngest daughter came up to me at the end and said, Mom, I finally got to see you graduate. My youngest child. All the other children had seen me walk the stage and graduate. And so now I have three children who've graduated from college. Again, like I said, my middle daughter has graduated from FLCC and is currently at St. John's University, finishing up in Queens, her bachelor's. And to my community, I don't think a lot of times that we can say that we're going to do things, but unless there's action behind it, um, it really doesn't mean anything, because it's this community. A lot of times I have a lot of students and families and parents, grandparents that come to me and say, how did you do it? How did your kids do it? And it's hard to explain it. They've seen, the work that's put into it, the hard work, the dedication. And I just consider myself to be that person available to those in the community, that, individuals that say, I don't know, I don't think I can do this, but you can. And so with that said, I still have dreams. I'm still wanting to be a teacher in something, as I am here during this COVID-19, um, at home. And there's a lot of things that I'm learning. And the one thing I have learned is that you never forget where you've come from. And being a lifelong learner, I am also a reader. So I'm starting to pick up things, pick up books, using those skills that I learned my last semester at FLCC, and able to apply them to my work. But most importantly, I'm a people person, and I'm glad that I had the opportunity to finish up my second degree in human services. That's a helping field. Those of us that are in human service, we're helpers, considered helpers, and that's what I consider myself to be. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I think that's a really important message about the importance of those of support systems and the mentors that we discover along our journey, and then I think also very interesting then how in a way coming full circle and then serving in that role to be a role model and inspiration to others. So thank you for sharing that, Pat. And just a reminder that we will have time for questions at the end. And as you do think of, if you have questions in the meantime that you want to enter into the chat area below, you're certainly welcome to do that. And so then this brings us to our next presenter, who is Caitlin Leskowski. And there you are.
Hi.
Hi, Caitlin. Well,
thank you. So I am actually, I graduated from Newark High School in 2004. And at that point in time, it was my intention to actually start at FLCC for the nursing program. So that was my goal, entering Finger Lakes Community College. So taking off with basically just the prerequisite courses, it was the Introduction to Psychology course that really sparked my interest into psychology itself. It was Dr. Hoyt was the adjunct professor at that point in time. And it was an assignment that it was an extra credit assignment that he gave us. Instead of writing a paper, he said, you know what, why don't you guys, I want you to go to, instead of writing your 10-page paper, which at that point I was willing to give up anything to write a paper. I would go to the Little Theater in Rochester and watch the show, or not the show, but the movie, What the Bleep Do We Know? Down the Rabbit Hole. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen it. I highly recommend it. It's wonderful. I still use it in my practice today, working with a lot of the inmates. But nonetheless, so I went there and it really just sparked an interest. And it changed for me that trajectory of where I was going from nursing, but more so into reference to psychology. So I changed my focus at that point. I graduated in 2006 with an applied science, and I went on to St. John Fisher College, where I received my bachelor's of science with focus on psychology. And at that point, I started investigating more programs that there was actually at that point a program, mental health counseling program at Fisher, which is a master's program that I applied for. I was accepted to, and I graduated from there in 2010. And I did an internship at Wayne Behavioral Health in Wayne County, in Lyons actually, and I spent probably about 3,000 hours during that point in time. And after my internship and graduation, they offered me a position, and that position was at the Wayne County Jail. And it was really just by happenstance, and I loved it. I loved working with that population. It was the idea of, I guess, it was more appealing than the idea of just sitting in an office, the monotony day by day. But more so is that every day is something new. It can be, you just don't necessarily know what you're walking into. So in addition to, well, let me back up a little bit. So I worked at Wayne County Jail for about 2 years before I transferred to Seneca County in 2012, where I am now the supervisor here of the mental health department, and I oversee the programming as well. But, again, going back to the responsibilities, we do intakes, we do counseling, we provide crisis intervention, we do a lot of programming with the inmates. We try to establish and build collaborative relationships with community partners, just for the transition for the offenders back into the communities. It's a really exciting position. It's very appealing. And in addition to my role as the mental health supervisor, I'm also the board president for Safe Harbors of the Finger Lakes. So in 2014, I was approached by a board member, John Clear, who is a good friend of mine. And he had said, as far as, the advocacy, working with the victims. So I joined the board, and I and now the board president since 2017. And I'm also the chair for the Criminal Justice Advisory Board. I've been the chair since 2017, so I work very closely with the magistrates. I work very closely with those outside providers. So it's going to be the heads of DSS, it's going to be probation, role, a number of other entities, okay? And there's a lot of exciting features to this role. And I'm also a certified instructor, suicide prevention instructor. So I instruct at correctional academies. I instruct at Wayne County Correctional Academy, Seneca County Correctional Academy. I instruct at the Finger Lakes Law Enforcement Academy for the fundamental crisis intervention skills training. Most recently developed a new curriculum that we're adding to our Corrections Academy, which really emphasizes the importance of officer wellness. That's been something that's been very important to me, where we just really try to emphasize the importance of police officers, correction officers, career cumulative stress and peer support, etc., and tapping into resources that are available to them both within the agency and outside the agency as well.
Thank you very much, Caitlin. And it's so interesting to learn from hearing the different stories today about how the trajectories kind of wind from what is originally maybe the goal, but then the path kind of leads to something that does, it sounds like, becomes more fulfilling or kind of combines aspects of maybe what the original plan was. So thank you very much for sharing. I mean, we'll have some questions afterwards. Thank you very much. And next we will have Dee Westfall.
Hi there.
Hello, welcome, Dee.
Hi.
Hi.
I guess I'll just get started then. So I just, first of all, I want to say thank you for having me. I like to help people in their paths. So I was helped a lot and I like to pass that forward. I would start with my reasons for going to FLCC. They kind of mirrored what Pat said about getting the associate's degree, how important that can be. I was motivated in 2008-9 when the recession happened. My husband and I own a family business, and that was a very rough time for us. And we took no income for quite a few months, and I had a hard time finding a job that would pay something other than a minimum base rate. And because I didn't have a basic degree, it didn't really even matter what the degree was in, just as long as I had one for some of these jobs. It seemed really simple, and they were jobs that I was already doing. So I decided to go to college. So I started when I was 40. I signed up at FLCC, and it just went from there. Ironically, I wanted to become a nutritionist. So I was going to take the first few classes to prepare me for that. And then I decided that wouldn't work because to continue on, I had to move away from home, and I wasn't going to do that. So then I went in for business. That's what I actually signed up for and started classes. And 2 weeks later, I thought, you know what? I'm going to pay money for this. I'm going to put a lot of time into this over the next few years. And I want to do something I'm going to actually enjoy. And I like art. So I switched my major in the second week. That added a year to my program. So I was at FLCC for 3 years. But that was okay. I kept reminding myself going into it that even though things might feel hard and slow, as you're moving through them, sometimes it could feel swampy. By the time you're done and look back, it's always gone so fast in every experience I've ever had in my life. So I kept saying that to myself, it's going to fly, it's going to fly, it's going to fly. And it did. When I was done, I was astonished by how far I had gone in such a quick time. So I think what I want to focus on now is probably a little bit of the challenges that I had going in. First of all, this was a personal challenge. I didn't encounter this as a challenge from anybody else, not from professors or students, but I was 40 years old, and I was very nervous about that. I had a full-time job. I was still working at the store for 30 some hours a week, and that was tough. I had changed my degree in those first couple of weeks. That was a thing. The balancing act, I never got to see my friends. I had just no spare time. I was either working or studying. So it was hard. I will say that I had seen a juggler at the Grassroots Festival, and this was something that got me through. He was throwing all of these things in the air, like 6, 7 things, and he would drop one and he would leave it while he kept juggling the rest. And then he would slowly bring them into his hands, pick up the one he dropped, start over, drop another one, and start. And it kind of gave me the idea just watching him that, you know what, you can let something sit for a minute while you're focusing on the other ones, and then that will just shift. You can't leave something on the ground the whole time, but you can kind of let it shift back and forth and put your emphasis here. And I guess that just took some pressure off for me. But then I went and added more pressure because I wanted a high GPA. Because if I continued on in school, I wanted to do it for really hard at that. And I did achieve that, and I did get a lot of money to go on to where I ended up going was RIT at the advice of Liz Brownell. So how I managed to get through all of that, I think, was just a focus on what I was just saying, like the juggling act and the balancing, but also I think just strong self-will, having goals, having set goals, knowing what they were, support helped a lot, family, friends. I think one of the most important things for me then and still is mentors. I had a lot of mentors at FLCC. Lee Pittifer, who's here, is one of my mentors. She was one of those shining light mentors to me. Baron Eagle, he's the one that gave me the idea that I had this aptitude for sculpture that I hadn't explored before. I was not going to do sculpture, and it's my life now. I had Kurt and Nanny Nearing Bliss. Just some people that are there, those little stars in the world who take somebody, even some of them don't even know that they're doing it. But the one thing I have found about my mentors, and I think this is true of mentors, is that they celebrate in my achievements or anybody that they're mentoring as much as, if not more than I do. And that's how I know that someone's a true mentor. They really do want you to succeed, and they help you. So then I picked up more mentors at RIT, some artist mentors, some mentors at Keuka College, where I also work now. So, and that leads me to RIT. I ended up going there for very low tuition. I graduated from there in 2017. And then very shortly afterwards was offered a job at Keuka College, teaching art classes. And so now I teach 1 or 2 art classes most semesters. Not this semester, which I have to say I'm grateful for, given the current circumstances. So I just wanted to finish with a couple of tips that I gathered through my path and my journeys through all of this. One is keep learning. And I heard some other of the panelists say the same thing, but no matter where you are, what you're doing, learning and growth go together. It's not just a college thing. I have 3 different professional avenues in my life, and learning is a huge part of all of that. Seek mentors. Mentors have been my lifeblood in my professional development, partly because I'm removed. I live in Geneva, I work in Penn Yan, I'm removed from the art scene that I'm a part of and so on. And having mentors has been really good. One thing about mentors though is that you don't always need the same mentor your whole life. They will change and they should change. Time management is big for me. For me, time management is something I have to keep a calendar. I have to keep track of things. I generally start at the end of something, like on my due date, and I work backwards, filling in my calendar so I know what I have to have done when to get things done. I'd say that you have to fight, but we all know that just to get through, do what we're going to do, we have to fight. We fight ourselves, our doubts, sometimes other people, but I want to say we can't fight too hard. There are times when I first started with the nutrition thing, I learned that I would have died a slow if I had pursued the science classes and so on. They're not me. They just weren't for me. And the few classes I had taught me that that was not my path. That fight would have been too hard for me. And so I think it's important to know when to fight and when not to. And that leads to having goals. And we all do. If you've gotten this far, you've had goals, but remembering that every goal has a lot of other goals, and to celebrate all those small goals as you get to your big goals. and then make more. One thing I learned that was very valuable at FLCC in an art class was to say yes to instructors. This isn't just in school, but his name was John. I can't think of his last name right now. He was teaching me art foundation class. And he said, asked me to do something I didn't want to do. I was like, yeah, whatever. It's not my thing. It's not my wheelhouse, not where I'm going in life. And he said, do it anyway, which of course is what instructors do. But it broke a thing in me. I said, I'm going to say yes from on just because he's the instructor. But what I also learned from that is that I pushed through uncomfortable situations, anything that made me nervous or uncomfortable. I had the most growth by saying yes and embracing it and moving through it, not just with the actual project, but as a person and as a human being. So just a couple more. The concept of this too shall pass. That got me through a lot. It will get us through a lot as we're moving through right now. Someone else, I think it was Pat, mentioned self-care. Self-care does matter. We need to learn how to take care of our minds, our bodies, our diet. We also need to learn how to take care of our own self-care. It's different self-care for the person sitting next to you than for yourself. And so learn yourself and give yourself that. Give back to people, give back to where you came from. We didn't get any one of us where we are without somebody giving to us. And then and this one I use because this is one of my biggest hiring points when I'm hiring people for our shop, is to be kind and be helpful. I find that a helpful spirit is the most, it's the most valued for an employer. But I think in general, overall, if people are helpful, there's a willingness there that helps things move along. I guess I'm not really explaining that very well, but I do seek that because everything else can be taught, but that I don't think can be. So right now, I'm working full-time at our business, Church Creative Flooring. I'm teaching art classes at Keuka College. I am making and exhibiting my artwork still. I don't spend much time on that, but I do get at least one exhibit a year. And I am almost done. This is in the Keep Learning segment. Achieving my certification to become an interior designer. I should have that in June. So that's where I'm at with it. I would just give a shout out to FLCC that is the place where I found my passion. I found the medium, and I was also given the wings to go fly and pursue it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dee. And this has just been all of you. I can't thank you enough for just all of the words of wisdom, good advice. Just, I think whether it's, being a lifelong learner, giving back. I mean, all of these, a lot of what you have said, all of you, really resonates, I think, to the experience of learning, but also living in the times that we're in. All these things of also taking care of ourselves and looking out for each other. So thank you very much to all of you. And now we have time for some questions. So if you do have a question for anyone or all of our panelists, please, you can unmute yourself and ask your question, or you can type it in the chat box below. And Tammy, did you have anything that from what was typed in? I see that the comments that the metaphor of juggling was something I think people thought was a really great visual. Anyone?
I haven't seen any questions yet,
Okay.
but I wanted to ask one while we're waiting for other questions. So each of the four of you, your stories were amazing, one, because it's just so fun to hear kind of the ups and downs and arounds that take you, and the juggling was amazing. It was an amazing kind of representation of what this all looks like, because each one of you juggled multiple things going through school, and some of you have been through school multiple times. I'm wondering if you had advice for current students, kind of going through now, whether they're traditional age or non-traditional age. I know this is a crazy time kind of right now in terms of where we are and what we're doing. And I think a lot of people are feeling unsettled. But how do you, particularly in the fields some of you chose with art, I know I hear a lot of students feeling pressure sometimes. Choose something more practical or choose something that, can feel like it could go towards a job, feeling pressure from family or friends or society in general. What are recommendations or things that you would recommend students think about as they're kind of making their move through and trying to choose what would work best for them?
I think when you're talking about the art degree versus other degrees, it's still a degree. I mean, for me, I needed a 2-year, well, I say 2-year associate's degree. And it didn't even matter for the jobs that I was applying for, what my degree was. That being said, there are a lot of jobs in the world that require some sort of art skill, a lot more than we think of. We're not talking about the painter sitting on the corner in New York City doing the caricatures. There are a lot of jobs, all kinds of design, production, the things that make everything around us. There's a job for that. And then all of the support for all of that, or even bloggers and writing and understanding and so on and so forth. So I think that if you're going for something that works with you and who you are, it's going to succeed. And it also will keep you more motivated to continue on to see the end game, especially now. You mentioned the situation with the coronavirus. It's so hard to focus on things that you're not interested in right now. I don't even know how anybody would. If you care though, and your focus is on the end game, you're likely to hang in there.
I have to agree that there has to be a passion. I oftentimes, I've had this conversation several different times, with my clients, is that when they get, when especially if they're at the crossroads, they don't know, where am I going to go from here when I get released, or how did you come up with a decision about what you wanted to do? And I'm brutally honest. I'll say, I was interested in nursing or psychiatric nurse practitioner because of the money. The money was what was super appealing to me. And even to this day, a lot, my husband will say, well, you would have made more money if you would have done that. You're right, I would have. But there's a difference between a job and a career. And I have passion and love for what it is that I do. And there can be difficult days, absolutely. And but at the end of the day, it's the interest. I think that Dee was talking about. There has to be that passion there, and you have to choose and stick with that path of what your heart is telling you to follow and to do. Because there's that. I really firmly believe that had I stuck with being a nurse, I probably wouldn't have made it too much further because of that lack of interest versus where I'm at today. And how passionate I still remain in the field that I'm in. So, and FLCC really was that starting ground for me into finding that, just from that particular class and that particular taking that time and opportunity just to go and get that extra credit to get out of that 10-page paper. But again, it's just being true to yourself ultimately.
Hi, Lisa. This is Ken Campbell speaking.
Hi, Ken.
How are you?
Great. How are you?
Good. So first of all, I want to thank all the panelists. You guys were wonderful, and your story really resonates with me, and we'll talk about that some other time. A lot of my students are on today, and I just want to articulate a point that a couple of you have made, which is the data right now demonstrates that you have a 4-year degree, not a master's, not a doctorate. You're one of 3 out of 10 people in the United States. So the fact that the Anita said that she just needed a degree really resonates, right? A 4-year degree makes you only 30% of the people get a 4-year degree. If you go on beyond that, it's even more important. And when you look at internationally, it's less than 1%. 1% of the earth is a 4-year college degree. So when you do this, understand that you're doing this for your passion, you're doing this for your future, and you're doing this to set yourself apart. And I think a lot of students today don't get that. They think, well, it's just another degree. I'm just, running through the hoops. Well, that may be, but at the end of the day, when you get that piece of paper, you have set yourself apart from many, many other people. And because for a good reason, because you've worked hard, because you've learned all this. I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, and I agree that's an important message. And I think also from hearing from the panelists today, how important it is to be open to the experiences that one can have, whether it's, that class that was maybe a requirement that then opened up, a whole new, potential career or an interest. So yeah, thank you for saying that. I don't want to take away from any other questions that are out there.
I do have a question for Michelle.
Oh, great. Okay.
Because I've been there. I just want to know, she started a business. Michelle, you started a business, an art business. How was that? How hard was that?
Michelle may have left us. I think she may have had another call.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, so I think we may have missed her, although she said she would try to return to us. But that does kind of bring up a question, though, and back to the idea of juggling. In having the responsibilities of business and teaching, how do you ensure that you carve out time, your own creative time, to do your own work?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
The thing about time management, it's really about that, because I have a family too, and I like to spend time doing things like riding my bike and, all that kind of stuff. I just know on Sundays and Mondays, the bulk of my day, my work time is in my studio, and then I teach only 1 or 2 classes, and I clump them together. If I'm teaching 2 classes in a semester, I want them back. And so then I can keep that together, and they're always on Tuesday and Thursday. And then I just have my daily work schedule is very regimented, but I work every day from the same times to the same times. What I do each one of those days is very different, is the thing. And I have found that I probably thrive on that. I've sometimes wished loosely that I could have a schedule that was more, sit at my desk all day long and just do whatever. And it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. I can't do it. I have to have something different. And even within my job at the store, the design work, I have to go to people's houses. Sometimes I'm at the desk. Sometimes I'm doing bookkeeping. But my timing for it all is within a certain time frame every single day.
Yeah, that is important. Let's see. Do we have any other questions that have come in?
I'm going to ask a question. If no one else is confident, I got a ton of them.
Okay.
So my question would be, for each one of you, you have a little bit of a different field. Your fields kind of all are in different areas. If you were looking to be somebody that were going into the particular field, so the healthcare and the helping and the art / kind of creative piece of things, what are the characteristics that students should have that are going to make them successful in your fields?
So what I'm looking for when I have interviewed potential applicants, I need somebody that's going to basically have a good personality, somebody that has strong boundaries, because you're working in a correctional institution. Somebody that is willing to work, that's professional, that has empathy, the willingness to learn, and really the ability to be receptive towards constructiveness, constructive feedback, I think is really, truly important. And communication is so incredibly important as well.
I'm gonna ditto that. I think it's important if someone's coming into, no matter what I'm doing and looking for a job, like for my store or whatever, I'm more concerned about the person, their character, their drive, their helpfulness, their eagerness. I'm concerned if they know the trade. I mean, I'm not gonna hire someone to help me with an interior design job that knows nothing about interior design. I would like them to have that basic education. But as far as how they will work for me, I'll teach them. Or here at the store where we're talking about samples and how to talk to customers, that's all stuff that can be taught. I look more for the underlying character traits that will make them teachable, relatable, helpful, and a strong part of an overall team.
Hi, am I on? Hi.
Hi, Pat.
Hi, so just real quick, I think in the health field or being a health advocate, the one thing I find most important is not, you know, communication is very important, but don't assume. When you're working with patients and individuals, and when you live in work in small communities, we see individuals outside of, the workplace. When they come into the offices, just because I may know them, when they come in, it's almost as if I have to turn that off, as if I don't, because respect is important when you're dealing with individuals, and I found that, yeah, it's just best not to assume and judge. I think the whole part of the holding that human service degree, like I said too, is that I'm a helper, and so regardless of what I may know or want to know, they're there for one reason and one reason only, and everything else, confidentiality, of course, is very important. Everything else is between, I tell the patient, everything else is between them and the provider. So it's hard when you work in a small community and you know everybody, but I found that, you know what, at the end of the day, they're still human beings, and that's the way I look at them, regardless.
Thank you.
That's good. Can I ask a question, Caitlin?
Sure, yes, please.
Caitlin, I was wondering, you said that you teach suicide prevention instruction. What does that mean?
So what I do is that I instruct at the Correctional Academy to new correction officers. They may have already been working for a year or so, but they've been on provisional basis. But nonetheless, so basically it's a curriculum that provides current material on how to use certain well, we have it's called a suicide screen. So when an inmate comes into booking, they have to be trained in booking. So how to use is called the ADM 330. So it's a suicide screen, which is a predictor in whether or not an individual is at risk within the first 72 hours, etc. So how to use that screen. We also talk about mental illness, what are the signs and symptoms associated with the chronic mental health conditions, schizophrenia, bipolar, major depression. Those also that are under the influence. How do we tell when someone is under the influence of drugs or alcohol? What to expect when an individual is under the influence of drugs or alcohol? How it places an individual at risk of suicide. Cluster effect. What happens if an individual attempts suicide within the confines of a facility? The importance of checks, which is when an officer makes their rounds within the unit. Basically, it sets the officer up for on the educational side of things to become aware of mental health, substance abuse, and other predictors that places an inmate at risk for suicide. And then we also talk about, because I think that it's important, officer wellness, because suicide risk is also very prevalent in correction officers as well as police officers. So.
That's what I was wondering, is if it was for the inmates or it's both. Okay, that's great.
Right. Yep.
Well, at this point, I'd like to just say thank you very much to all of our alumni presenters for all that you are doing to make our communities better, just all the amazing things that you're doing, and you certainly all of you have done and are doing FLCC very proud. So thank you to all of our fascinating speakers. For those students who are soon will become alumni, congratulations, and we hope that you'll keep it. Hope that you'll return to us as panelists yourselves someday. For those students who are going to be continuing their education at FLCC this fall, my colleague Margaret Lorenzetti is on the line with us, and she has some information that she can share about scholarship opportunities. Margaret?
Thanks, Lisa. So I hope that most of you have received and viewed the video that Amber and Lee put out for the different campus centers. But just as a reinforcement, we are encouraging you to apply for scholarships. The deadline is May 6th, so that's next week. To get there, we ask you to use Chrome because that's a search engine where you'll be able to save your application, as you don't have to do the entire application in just one sitting. To get there, you go to give.flcc.edu and then click on to scholarships. One general scholarship application will suffice for all the over 100 scholarships that we have. Once you do hit the submit button, and again, make sure you do that by May 6th, you may receive a notice that says that you might be eligible for certain other scholarships. And at that point, you'll actually see the individual names. Prior to that, like I said, it's one general application for all of them. If you see those specific names, that's because that specific scholarship might ask you for one or two questions. I'm always, Lee, Amber, anybody is always right there to help you. People can email me at scholarships@flcc.edu if you have any questions. Our scholarships range from like $400 to full tuition, so it really pays to spend a little time to do those. We also have the writing centers that are available virtually, so to help you with your essays. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Margaret. We appreciate that. And this was really a great event. Thank you so much to Michelle, Pat, Caitlin, and Dee. This is a great way to spend an afternoon and a lot of inspiration as we have the remaining weeks of the spring semester. And I hope that, again, thanks for the students and professors and colleagues for being here today. Hope that we will do some more of these in the future. And please take care of yourselves, stay safe, and thanks again for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thanks. That was great. Thank you.